So I've just got back from EMF camp, haven't even managed to unpack yet, but I figured I would make a very quick video about how we built the robo help agent running on the EMF phone network. So don't know how much you know about EMF camp. It's a hacker maker camp that happens in the UK every couple of years. For the last few years it's been down near Ledbury, and I grabbed my tickets for this earlier in the year, but then really didn't get too much time to work on anything fun for EMF camp. And part of the reason for that actually is I've been working on this open source telephone agent software that puts large language models on a telephone network. That's a really rubbish excuse for not making anything cool, but I figured actually, given that EMF camp has a telephone network, and even more interestingly, I heard that EMF camp this year is running on Jambones. Well, Jambones is an open source CPaaS architecture, and it happens to be exactly the architecture that I chose to run my large language model agent software on top of. So I figured if I'm going to be going to a field which has got its own instance of Jambones, and it's got a whole bunch of telephones, the very least I could do is go and build an agent to help people navigate their way around EMF camp, which is how the 2102 telephone agent came to life. And this literally, kind of came to life. I think I started working at about 5 o'clock, just as I was trying to get some food just before finishing off my packing for EMF camp. And the idea behind it was that I just kind of put together this kind of little prompt, and I think this is where I was before EMF camp. And we'll run this actually within an open source, within a proprietary large language model, because right now that'll get us the best, quickest results. So what I did was put together this little agent. Now I know there are some actual APIs at EMF camp for things like the villages and the talks. So the idea was I would put a prompt together that puts an LLM on the telephone and then empower it to go and make calls on that EMF camp API, so it can advise people, where the interesting villagers, workshops, talks are. Really simple prompt. The way that I'm starting to work with large language models at the moment is to use very small prompts and then function calling to actually give them data and constrain things. So I put in a stub of a get villagers call that just delivers an empty array, and a stub of a get schedule that delivers an empty array, and then I went to look for EMF camp APIs. Now the good news that EMF camp really is kind of like a software architecture that occasionally runs a hacker camp. It's kind of one of the ways that it's been described. So all of the infrastructure behind EMF camp is very well systemized, and it means that we've got things like APIs that give us a JSON representation of what all the villagers are. So I can just use that API and I can lob that into my function calling. It looks like I've done this already actually when I switched that from being a stub, but we'll do the same thing on the get schedule. So we've got talk schedule endpoint, and this isn't very sophisticated. It's just a dump of an entire JSON object that specifies the whole of the list of talks. So that might get kind of interesting actually. So I'll turn that into a web API on a get, and that's got a slightly different URL. I'm going to talk about the why and what's of that in a second. Okay, so that's my function calls that go and query the EMF camp APIs. And this little playground is just something that I developed that sits on top of my open source infrastructure, and it just allows me to very quickly prototype start functions and prompts and start agents, and the agent just starts on effectively an ephemeral phone number. I can call it, and let's see how we get on, shall we?
Hello, this is EMF Robo Help. I'm here to make sure you have a fantastic EMF camp experience. How can I assist you today?
I'm interested in fire. And you can see it makes the API calls to
Sorry, I am having a bit of trouble getting the data you need at the moment. Let's try again.
Okay, so that didn't go too well, did it? And what actually happened there was that we blew away the context window in the large language model, because you remember those two APIs, they deliver huge JSON structures. I forget what the context window is on GPT-4o. I want to say it's 32K, but it might be even smaller than that. But basically, we're blowing away the context window. And this is the point I got to. In the end, I had to go and pack my bag, load it up in the car, drove off down to Ledbury. I live a few hundred miles away from there. Got there, so I'm sitting in the lounge at EMF camp, trying to figure out how to make this work. So the next step kind of make it work was basically to write a little wrapper for the EMF camp APIs that put effectively a search string on it. So rather than every single invocation of the large language model going off and pulling all of the data, what we're going to do is have it query the user to find out what they're interested in and then use a search string. This was actually written by a large language model just for fun, so I think I asked Mixtral, Mixture of Experts model, to write me an Express app that did essentially this. I had to tweak it a little bit, but it did kind of scaffold out something really quickly that did that. And normally, being EMF camp, I would have run it on a Raspberry Pi in my tent, but my tent was, kind of 100 meters away. And whether I had a Raspberry Pi in it or not, I just decided to throw it on a cloud server somewhere. So threw it on a cloud server, and that gave me an API that I could actually use within my endpoints. So we'll go and hack those function calls now to use those endpoints instead. So my URL for my wrapped API for villagers is that, and my wrapped API for the schedule is this. Should have put on a real URL and released it to the rest of EMF camp, but let's see how that goes now.
Hello, this is EMF Robo Help. I'm here to make sure you have an amazing time at EMF camp. How can I assist you today?
I'm interested in fire.
Got it. What are you interested in? Maybe technology?
No, I said
art,
I'm interested
music,
in fire.
or something else. Understood. You're interested in the schedule. Is there a specific topic or type of event you're looking for in the schedule?
It's fire that I'm interested in.
You might enjoy When a Tree Falls in the Forest, Does It Cause a Fire, on May 31st at 7:30 p.m, or the Musical Tesla Coil Demo on June 1st at 9:30 p.m.
Okay, that's super, thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy your time. I'm sorry, I have to go now. Goodbye.
Okay, so we're going good so far, but what I don't really want to do is expose a whole bunch of hackers in a field to OpenAI's models. What I really want to do is run this on an open source model, so let's give that a go and see whether this just works as is on something like Llama 3.
Hello, EMF Robo Help here. I'm excited to help you make the most of your EMF camp experience. How can I assist you today?
I'm interested in fire.
It looks like you might be interested in the Northern Quarter Village, which mentions not letting the global be on fire. Would you like to know what's happening in the schedule related to fire or the Northern Quarter?
Yeah, tell me about schedule stuff as well, please.
It looks like there are some interesting talks and events related to fire and the Northern Quarter Village. You might want to check out When a Tree Falls in the Forest, Does It Cause a Fire, Talk, or the Musical Tesla Coil Demo, which sounds like a unique experience. If you're interested in rockets, there's a talk on 3D printing a rocket engine and even a paper rocket workshop for all ages.
Okay, so that sounds pretty good. There are a few tweaks that I want to make to the prompt, specifically around, I don't want to wait, I don't want it to wait to be told to call the tools APIs. I just want to go ahead and do it. A caller isn't going to know that it's connected up to a bunch of APIs. The caller is just going to want to get all the information that's available. And also, there's this great big wait here while the large language model makes the tools call, which is, you know, kind of, it's okay if you are looking at it in this playground and you can see what's going on, you know what's happening. But if someone's just on the phone, they're going to think the software isn't working and it's not giving them answer. But basically that gives me the whole thing running on my centralized hosted infrastructure, but I've got to get it working on the EMF camp infrastructure because I want to connect it up to those EMF phones. So as I mentioned, EMF has got its own instance of Jambones. Now, the way this all works, effectively, I'm not doing the speech to text or the text to speech within the LLM agent software. That's all going on inside Jambones. So the endpoint of the telephone conversation is Jambones. It does speech to text. It then hands me the text, and for whatever reason, the speech to text and text to speak engines that I've been using on my central hosted instance are things like DeepGram, 11 Labs, and Google. The Jambones instance, EMF Camp, only has one of those engines for speech to text, text to speech. And that is AWS. There are presumably some economic reasons for that. Those services are basically, you know, kind of expensive paid for services. So I'm guessing someone is paying for the AWS cost at EMF Camp, and I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth now because my LLM agent doesn't support AWS. There are a few tweaks I have to do now. Actually, before we go on that, I'll explain why I need to do the tweaks, because basically I enumerate all the available voices as part of LLM Agent. It's part of the API. You can ask it what voices you have and then choose one. So I've got this kind of enumeration piece in there. And if we have a look at the voices, we've got DeepGram, Google, 11 Labs. So what I did was made a really quick and dirty EMF Jambones hacked branch and added AWS in there. You know, again, this is me sitting in the lounge at, by now it must be getting on for 10 in the evening, and I really want to be in the bar because Thursday evening is the night before the bar is sold out of any beer, so we want to be there. So, as I mentioned, some of the voice APIs that we use, for example, Google, they programmatically allow you to get a list of voices, and I've not found a way to get these out of Jambones, so I basically pull those within my own software. Similarly, 11 Labs has a programmatic way of getting the data out. DeepGram doesn't. That's just kind of websiteware, so there's a list of voices on DeepGram website. You kind of have to go and parse that, so I kind of scrape those. So I figured the quickest and dirtiest way, I have no idea whether AWS does have a programmatic way of getting the voices out, but I just went to their documentation, picked a couple of EMGB voices, UK English locale voices, because we're in the UK, so that's all I care about, and just did a quick hack where I gave it a couple there. And that basically got me a local copy of LLM Agent that I could run at EMF Camp, which understood AWS and could talk to the EMF Camp version of Jambones, or the EMF Camp instance of Jambones. And that fundamentally is how the whole thing worked. I had it up and running by about Thursday evening. Lots and lots of people seem to have used it, so there were lots of calls to 2102. I would love to analyse those transcripts to figure out what people were getting out of it and what they were using it for, but that kind of didn't feel like felt like a bit of an invasion of privacy. So I've torn down the VM all that was running on, and it no longer exists. But if you did use it and you did enjoy it, I'd be really interested in your experience, even more if you used it and you hated it. Similarly really interested in it. You can find, by the time I finish this video, I will also put a write-up on pickering.org, which has got links to all the bits and pieces that I used for it. And yeah, let me know if this is useful or not. Bye now.